Good evening, everybody. We are running a bit late, so we're just gonna kind of get introductions out the way very quickly. But welcome to Season 6, Round 3 in Division 2. Last night it was Qatar in Division 1, but tonight in Division 2, we're off to Melbourne, and of course we'll go through that in just a second. But first, let's take a quick look at your driver's standings. It is currently Quincy and Pleasant Lake equaling on points, both taking a second place and a first place in their first two races, with Snake getting that in Austria, and then Quincy getting P1 in his home race. Then Ryan Brooks trailing behind, with Race Chase not too far in tow, along with Energetic, and that is very tight battles there for third and first, respectively. Then, from 6th to 10th is Trugster, Mr. Cloud San, Toby, Tarkagino, and Nosebo. And then for your next half of the field, it is Herman in 11th, from Kovachka, Kwan, Skid Solo, and Eugene. Then from 16th to 20th, ADS, Cerebo, Emin, Sergeant Devsey, and Bruiser. And then we go to your team standings as well. McLaren, of course, are leading the way, with Quincy and Race Chase being very good at what they do, and that's just driving around the track. And then it's Mercedes following on 18 points behind, with Racing Bulls following on in third, a bit on their own there. Haas, Williams, and Aston Martin currently trying to fight it out for fourth place. And then it's Ferrari, Red Bull, Alpine, and Sauber rounding out your 10 drivers. Of course, tonight we are in Australia, as that isn't properly centered, but just give me a moment and that can be quickly fixed. And then next week it will be off to Jeddah. I think the only discrepancy between Division 1 and Division 2, but let's worry about that another time, because we are currently underway for an 18-minute session of qualifying, where places 1st through 19th will be decided. Bruiser and Nosebo, the Red Bulls actually first out on a flying lap here this evening. Now, here's what we need to cover, because there were a few, well, there was one particular penalty dished out, which wasn't actually too controversial in the grand scheme of things. Didn't really make any sort of impact on anybody, but it was Kwan got an additional 5 seconds onto his time, and also got a penalty point onto his racing license, for lack of a better word. But otherwise, it is otherwise all good for Kwan today. But in terms of penalty points, he does have one to his name, as now Rowley, of course, doing very well in PFRL Friday nights, and their 100% division joins us for today. So one of the reserves, I do believe. And, well, it's certainly going to be a very interesting evening. I think it's the first time I've commentated on this track in this game. But, of course, I do love this little layout. But the track at this particular moment, in this current configuration, has 14 turns at a length of 5.3 kilometers, which rounds out to about 3.3 miles. A lap record held around here is a 1:19.813, held by Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari from 2024. So the SF24 on that one. Originally opened in 1953 and actually had to close 5 years later due to political pressure. So racing had to wait for a very long time, and it wasn't until 1996 when it returned, and a famous Martin Brundle went flying at turn 3. The circuit uses everyday sections of the road that surround the track, as it's also known as Albert Park. But here we are on board Red Bull, invalidating the lap, so this will not count. So we'll move on to his teammate Bruiser, and he's looking for something a little more spectacular, you would feel. Not been the best start to his season so far. But obviously, takes the city about 2 months to prepare, and then 6 weeks to pack up everything afterwards. So, going into this evening, we obviously have Pleasant Lake and Quincy fighting it out for the title, but Ryan Brooks taking a podium in Division 1 last night will be feeling very confident in Division 2. But of course, we were at Qatar last night, but tonight we are on the different side of the world, in a land down under, if you will. Bruiser now coming across the line to complete his first flying lap of the session. Skid Solo takes a 1:19.476. Don't expect that to stick, as Bruiser is about 2.5 seconds slow. His, for lack of a better word, oh no, Bruiser there getting in the way and impeding the Alpine on pit exit. That is one of the Alpines, and I think that was to Brand there, and indeed was Bruiser not paying full attention there to his surroundings and blocked the Alpine on pit exit. Luckily, there's still 14 minutes in the session, so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, but might have just distracted T-Brand a little bit. And speaking of Ryan Brooks, like we were earlier on, he's currently on a flyer in, well, from 11th place, but of course, no time on the board just yet for the Haas driver, but looking good there. Currently, like I said before, 3rd place in the championship and got 3rd place last week in Silverstone. Hoping to just go that little bit better this week, but we will, of course, soon find out. Of course, Ryan Brooks running new equipment. Only 3 drivers so far to complete a lap time, which is of Skid Solo, Bruiser, and Sir Ibo. And then as soon as I say that, Trugster knocks all those times out. It's a 1:16.5, and he's been really working on his track limit penalties. Of course, you might remember in the opening race, he actually got no 3-second penalties to his name, and he was certainly very proud about that. We came back to me boasting in the post-race interview, as then Toby comes in with a 1:18.0, but now we need to keep an eye on this Haas driver. His opening lap, we'll see where this puts him. It's going to be a very good time regardless. We just need to see where it will be, and he was, of course, just speaking of last night, he was very happy with P3, especially round Qatar, a hard track to overtake on, and will the dirty air be as an effect as it was last night? And there you go, Ryan Brooks. Well, kind of matching Trugster there. That was about 3 3/10 there off the pole time, so he'll be very happy with that. But here's your 2nd place driver in the championship, Pleasant Snake here, and he is just coming across the final couple of corners, which will be of turns 15 and 16. Here we go, down the start-finish straight. He goes. This should be quick, and it is. That is 2nd place with a 1:16.7. We now need to see where is Quincy, as fellow Sun goes to the line in 4th. He was, of course, around in Division 1 last night, got a top 10 finish, and so he'll be buzzing from that and just hoping to keep the momentum going. And Quincy is just going down the big straightaway now, which, of course, ends Sector 2 and begins Sector 3, and he'll be doing that just now. He sets a 44.241 and goes through the left and the right. The S section can be very challenging, but in these cars, it's usually not a problem. Just need to know where your braking points and gears are, and you're usually A-okay. Through turn 13, he goes now through turn 14. This should be an okay lap. I haven't seen the whole lap from the McLaren, but this one is looking quite okay, just being on board. Compare that to Bruiser, who we saw open up, and he wasn't using as much of the track. But here we go, Quincy towards the line. That's a 1:16.9, so that leaves him just under 4/10 off of pole position. It's a good banker, and that will certainly give him a bit of an idea of where he can find the pace later on in the session. Of course, I think we have just over 10 minutes to go here in the qualifying. Of course, we did have a bit of a late start, unfortunately, but otherwise we are now underway, and Trugster, who's currently sitting on pole, is on another out lap, so we should be seeing another flyer from him in 1 or 2 minutes time. But here we go, teammate to Ryan Brooks for the evening. It is Rolly a 1:8.81. Not the most spectacular time in the world, considering he's leading in PFRL's Friday Night League, so maybe was just had a bit of an error somewhere. Herman the German, who was with me in the commentary box last night, is now officially here on the track for Division 2, has decided to stick with Division 2 and observe Division 1 from my commentary box. So let's see how he can do. Of course, Season 1 champion here hasn't been able to repeat that look since Andy has joined in, but then again has been a good competitor to Andy, but has decided to let go of Division 1 for the time being. And he was just saying he wasn't quite feeling at one with the game just at the moment. He's currently still finding his flow. He does believe there is more time as things go on, as there is another great time there. It's not good enough for pole, but it is race chase up to second with a 1:16.725 there. That was just posted a few moments ago. And here we go. We're watching Herman come to the end of the lap. Let's go on board with the Mercedes driver. Being a bit of a slow start to the season, but if he can get this lap right, it would certainly be a stepping stone in the right direction. He would certainly love to be in that top 10 yet again. And here we go, only a couple of corners to go. It's actually 16 turns on this configuration, so beg your pardon. As now DRS opens, he's now coming down the start finish straight now. It should be about a 1:17.1, and that is 6th place, and I think Herman will be very happy with that. Just under 6/10 to pole position. And you know what? It is certainly a lot tighter than I thought it was going to be. But now, look at Truckster. Over half a second nearly found in Sector 1. What about Sector 2? He's just approaching that in a few moments' time. Oh my word, over 3/10 of a second. Truckster has this as his teammate nearly impedes the lap. I don't think he was affected too badly by it, but his teammate, which is Quan there, who took part in Division 1 last night, also just got a little bit of a scare there. So we had to take the grass towards the exit of turn, what is number 12 just there. That's Truckster having a bit of a slide through 6 between the 15 and 16, and now onto the DRS straight for the last time. And it is an improvement, and it's not as significant, so maybe that Sector 3 scare he got from Quan did actually ruin his time, so he will not be very happy there. And speaking of Quan, he's just going on to his flying lap now, but we've got somebody a bit further down the road. That's Tarkan Gino here in the Aston Martin with his teammate Eugene. And just looking a bit sliding there on the exit as he got on throttle. But that's probably a representative of how the lap's gone. We'll see how this concludes once he comes through this corner and takes a very narrow approach there. Won't have the best exit. DRS will open for Tarkan Gino, and that's 11th place, but there is still 3 drivers to set a time. We've also got Sergeant Devsey, who's invalidated his time, so he won't actually set anything. Toby there just improves to 7th place there in the Racing Bulls, a 1:17.720. And Race Chase is actually on another flyer, up half a second in Sector 2, and his teammate Quincy in on an outlap, not too far behind, so maybe the McLaren's doing some slipstream work here. Let's see what Race Chase could do. And that's pole position for the American driver for now. But now his teammate Quincy is on a lap, and I imagine Race Chase knows the drill here. Give Quincy slipstream, maybe if you can, down this straight, but don't give him the dirty air once you go into the next complex of corners. And there you go, Race Chase swiftly moves out the way as we approach what is, as he goes through turn number 3 there, now through turns 4, 5, he has got a clear track ahead of him and no real traffic to worry about. Only, I think it's an Alpine and an Aston Martin ahead. And then all the other drivers ahead on that track map shouldn't cause too much of an issue for the McLaren driver. And at the moment, Quincy sitting in 5th place, but needs to find just over 7/10 of a second. He's down in Sector 2 by nearly half a tenth here, and that looked very wide on approach there through turns 11 and 12. So this might not be the most spectacular lap from your current championship leader. And Ryan Brooks, I need to see where the other contender is. Of course, that is Pleasant Snake. They're currently in 3rd place, so neither of them setting the timing boards alight. Seems like Race Chase has found something. Oh, Quincy there was very... Oh! Quincy has crashed! Right into the pit lane barrier! I never thought I'd see that in a league race, but that's a first time for everything. Your championship leader has crashed in what is embarrassingly spectacular fashion here in qualifying. And Quincy just couldn't look like he couldn't decide which way he wanted to go. Did he want to go in, or out, 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 out? In the end, he ended up being an ouchie. And he says goodbye in qualifying. And that is, as we see there, Pleasant Snake having a nightmare going into turn 3. Not as nightmarish as what we've just seen. But either way, that is Pleasant Snake's flying lap completely ruined, and he will have to try again. We will now go to the Ferrari of Sergeant Devsey, who's not set a time with just under 5 minutes to go, and he is coming across the line now. It's not going to be going to set the time boards alight, but it is going to be enough for 11th position. So the Tifosi currently in 7 and 11th, 7-11 for them. And then Energetic, what can he do, considering now that the... Well, one McLaren is out. Could he perhaps try and get a bit of a foothold in one direction or the other to get some sort of advantage in the constructors? Remember, Racing Bulls in a league of their own right now, currently in 3rd place, and need to find some ground on the Mercedes in front, and both the Mercedes currently qualifying 3rd and 7th. Tabran is your most recent improvement there. He's got up into 4th with a 1:16.7, so great time from the one of the Alpine drivers. Kovachka, of course, we were looking at just a few moments ago, but he was down on his best times. Now remember, the delta in the top right only compares to your best, not the overall session best, so do remember that as we progress further in qualifying. Brief yellow flag, but no need for any intervention. Energetic there, actually just pips his teammate by just over 1/10 of a second there, up to 9th place there for the Racing Bulls. So Racing Bulls currently 9th and 10th there, as Kovachka is not on an improvement here yet again, down by nearly 3 seconds in Sector 2 and is currently 15th for his trouble. There is also the Ferrari of Fellowson. Is that into the pits? No, that was his teammate Sergeant Devsey. What about Tabran, who's invalidated what I believe is an in-lap, but with over 3 minutes to go, he's going to have a really quick stop here. Change his tyres like no time. Oh, that will not help at all. Tabran spinning into turn 15 there. Well, that's probably just going to add on a bit of time into his final preps for his final flying lap. And now we go to Herman, the German. Of course, remember, commentator with me last night, but racing driver tonight. He is going to be trying to find some form in that Mercedes and make sure they can hold their constructors' lead. Oh, into the barrier nearly goes the German, and maybe just a bit of that passion, a bit of that vinegar coming through from being a Season 1 champion. Finally, can Herman find his footing on this game? He is just going through Sector 2 now. He'll be at the timing line in just a few moments. It's nearly half a second improvement. You know what? This is looking very good indeed from a former champion. He's still got it, and he is not too far away from completing what could be a spectacular and important lap for the German here, as we now go through turn 14 into 15, which will quickly become 16. Slow it all the way down here into 3rd gear, and then try and control your throttle as you go through the final corner. If you have the setup correct, you can possibly go flat through there, but here we go. To the line goes Herman. 2nd place by an improvement on his PB by 7.5 tenths, but will that stand? He does have time to set up for one final flying lap. 1 minute 40 seconds to go. The Season 1 champion is in the house, and he's made his presence known here in the land down under. But Ryan Brooks may have something to say. Nearly 3 tenths up there in Sector 2. Now going through Sector 3. He's going across the 2nd or 4th DRS zone. It's so confusing with DRS zones around here, so forgive me if it does take a little bit of time to get used to counting them. But here we go now through turns 15 and 16. What does Ryan Brooks have left in the tank? This is his final flying lap, so this might be poor timing from the Haas driver. Goes very wide there, but he's trying to use all the track to get the best momentum onto the start finish straight. 3rd place! That is good, but has he left that a little too late, or a little too early, I should say? And I think fellow Son might have done the same. No, he's actually gone for a cooldown, so he's going to try and have another go. So he's got time yet. Truckster starts a flying lap behind. Pleasant Second to Brown will not be too far off, but now we are in the final countdown. We are in the final laps of qualifying. There's an Aston Martin who's furthest along the track, and I'm just trying to figure out who that might be. I think it's Tarkangino. It is, but he's far, far down on his times. So we now have to cut to the next best scenario. I think that's the Red Bull of No Sebo. It is, who is currently on a flyer. He will not see any traffic before his lap is over. Currently 9th place here, and that's in the gravel, and I think that's his flying lap written off. Rowley is next behind. No, it is not. That is Ryan Brooks, and he's ran out of time, as we already said. And it's going to be one of the Ferraris now, which will be Sergeant Devsey. We know it's not going to be him. He's invalidated his time. It's fellow Son here, who got a top 10 last night. Can he repeat the same fortunes going through the final few corners? Here we go. If you've got a lap time, that's not how you take turn 15, though. And fellow Son straight to the pits. That is the end of his qualifying. But now, what about Truckster, who's on the start-finish line now? Where can he put it? Second place! Race Chase may have this, but now there's a Ferrari in the background. It won't be fellow son as Kvachka is retired. There's a Kick Sauber coming to the line. That's Sir Ibo, who's invalidated. Race Chase. Oh, there's contact! There's been contact! And the Mercedes has to go into the pits. Is that Pleasant Snake? No! Pleasant Snake still on a time. He's got the DRS open. No improvement from him. Pleasant Snake will remain 5th. Quincy all the way down. Chabran remains 6th as well. What about Quan? He's in the pits. And that is it. After what was a dramatic final few laps, Truckster couldn't quite find it, but it is oh so close for the lead of the race. And I don't think we are going to see 3 cars run away with this one. I think we have got an absolutely spectacular race to come through. And now we are going to see what should be a fantastic end to what is a great, well, what has been a great qualifying so far. But now the evening will have a 50% feature race distance. And so to round out your qualifying, we have Race Chase on pole, Truckster in second, Herman in third, and rounding out your top 5 is Ryan Brooks and Pleasant Snake. Nothing to really separate the top 5, and that includes the top 6, which includes Sir Brown, and then rounding out your top 10 is Quincy, who of course crashed embarrassingly spectacularly in the pit entry. Then it's fellow son No Sabo and Tarkagino rounding out your top 10. Then Energetic in 11th, Toby in 12th, Eugene 13th, Worley, Sergeant Devsy rounding out your top 15. And then from 16th to 20th is Kvachka, Skid Solo, Quan, Sorebo, and Bruiser. And Bruiser unable to improve on a 122. Well, now we will go for a little bit of a break. We are going to be at a 8:10 start. And of course, please do not go anywhere. Let me just get the amount of laps we will be doing as we will return. But let's first and foremost pop on the synthwave. And then we will see you in just under 5 minutes time. We still have racing to come here in Div 2 in SSRL. It's a wet race here in the land down under. Welcome back. We're going to run through your grid one more time, and this means that it's Race Chase on pole on full red tyres. My word. And then it's Truckster in second with Herman the German taking intermediates. The one of two drivers to do that. Then it's Ryan Brooks, Pleasant Snake rounding out your top five. Tabran in sixth, Quincy in seventh, Fellow Son eighth, ninth is No Sebo, Tarkangino is rounding out your top 10. Then from 11th to 15th is Energetic, Toby, Eugene, Rowley, the second driver to be on intermediates. Then Sergeant Devsey rounding out your top 15. From 16th to 20th, it's Kovachka, Skid Solo, Quan, Sir Ibo, and Bruiser. Will the wet conditions... Oh, I was going to say, will the wet conditions suit the Red Bull much better? But that is him in the barrier going through turn number 5 there, so maybe not. But anyway, Race Chase leading the 19 drivers behind him through a formation lap. And, well, getting an idea for the grip. Looks like a lot of drivers are struggling and just trying to keep some sort of heat in those tyres. Usually it's best to keep them cool, as they are more used to separate the moisture from the surface and just move it out the way. Oh, my goodness me. Race Chase there very wide. But this could be a sign of things to come, and that just shows you how careful you have to be in these wet weather conditions. I'm surprised that the Race Chase hasn't got a bit slower just to try and acclimatize himself with these conditions. But hey ho, I'm not in Race Chase's shoes, and nor would I want to be in these conditions. Leader on a wet race, the only real thing that you would have going for you leading in a wet race is the fact that your visibility will be uncompromised, but you need a really good start, and you need to be on level with Truckster. And of course, this one's going to be a little bit unpredictable. I'm not sure where these people are in terms of wet weather pace. Maybe we'll see someone come from the back all the way to the front, but also, how long is the rain going to be here? Are we going to see it all dry up in a few laps time? Nobody knows. We have a disqualification for Sergeant Devsey, but in these conditions where the tyres will just instantly come to a cool temperature, that might not be a bad thing. The countdown's underway. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. It's going, Melbourne, and that looked like a slightly delayed start there from Race Chase. Just Truckster take advantage of it as we go through turn number 1 now, and it looks like Truckster has the lead of the race off the start. And there's Herman the German battling with Ryan Brooks, who is now up into third. Caution in sector 1 for a kick-out, but that was Sir Ibo, was on the grass down the start, finished straight there. And there is a German fighting with Quincy. The two friends are now battling through turns 4 and 5, and it is Herman who remains ahead, but Quincy looks to be faster. Herman is not quick off the start. Oh, Ryan Brooks! Oh, massive crash! Massive crash! Ryan Brooks is out! And that is damage to the McLaren as well! The front wing is gone. Pleasant Snake down to 11th. The top two involved as Toby gets a 10-second penalty for a severe collision, as does Kovachka, as does Devsey. It's all kicked off here on lap 1, and we have a safety car deployed, but Ryan Brooks' race has ended in 5 corners, and he didn't just take himself out with him. We have an unpredictable race on our hands. The top 3 have been hampered, and now somebody could come through. Will it be Truckster? Will it be Race Chase? Or will it be Herman? A return to the top step for the Season 1 champion, but those intermediates are not looking like the tyre to be on. But that being said, Rowley, with all that good drama going off at the front, has got himself up into 12th. But we'll see, it does look very wet down there in the Australian circuit, and Herman decides not to pit, so that means we need to keep an eye out on who is going to be pitting. Quincy, is he coming in? Yeah, he's got no front wing. He needs to come in. It is absolutely essential. Fellow Son in 4th, he is. What a start from Fellow Son. Let's see your biggest winners and losers in this. A drive-through penalty for No Sebo. His race has come undone. Oh, that is unfortunate. And he was up in the top 5 as well. Yeah, a genuine pace, but he's got to drive through and has to serve that. And Bruiser also has a 10-second speeding penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And we'll just recap the penalty totals now. And Devsy is also getting a 10-second penalty. He's serving that now, though. You can serve that under safety car. But a lot of action there. The top 3 drivers all involved in that turn 5 collision on lap 1, which has brought out the first safety car. And as Pleasant Stake, is he able to continue? Is Quincy able to continue? Down to 15th. And he did. He had a miserable qualifying. And now his start to the race has been absolutely miserable too. Can we get a little interview with Ryan Brooks, maybe, if we can try and find him, if he is up to chatting, that is. Tarkagino there saying good luck, and I'm going to try and see if we can get Ryan Brooks. Let's see. Just give me a moment. I'll be right back. I'll be right back with yous. Let's just see if we can get him in, because it would be good to speak to him. I will hop in. He was in the Haas, right? So let's see if we can hop in the Haas VC and have a quick word with him. I'll just turn off my microphone. Give him about 2 minutes, because he must be raging. So let's just make sure. Australia never disappoints, says Moksha. Welcome on in, Moksha. It's good to see you. Hope you're having a good time. What a lap 1 you have just witnessed. And, well, there's probably more to come at the moment. Here we are. Ryan Brooks is in there. Well, Ryan, I think you would have wanted that to go a lot longer than it did. Of course, P3 last night, but it is over in 5 turns on lap 1. Ryan, you have got to be upset with that.
Yeah, it's not the best start, is it?
that's an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good quali. I was dead happy with the quali. I went high on downforce, so I didn't know if it were going to work out. I didn't know what wings everyone else were running. But with a good quali and Herman on the inters, I thought I was getting P3 off the start, which I did. But then, like you say, I went into the corner, turned, and the car just went straight. So, yeah. Not very happy, but we live and learn. I've not drove wet with these new pedals yet, so I'm a bit nervous as it is. I felt alright in the first few corners. And then I just didn't slow down enough going into that corner and just ended up going straight. So, yeah.
Sorry about that, didn't mean to cut over you there.
No, you're alright.
In terms of the weather that has now played into effect, were we expecting wet weather, or has that come out as a complete surprise?
Yeah, we was expecting wet weather. The race was forecast to be wet all the way through. So a lot of us went on a higher downforce setup. I know I was running 30-24 wings when I'm usually a lot lower. So everyone was expecting the rain. But I'm not the most confident in the rain. So yeah, I'm just a bit upset, to be honest, but you know, it's one of them. We've just got to learn from it, haven't we?
Well, the thing is, I will say, I mean, it's not going to be great for you, but like the thing is, it's absolutely thrown up the championship here. The top 2 were involved in that collision, but of course you were in 3rd place as well, so it's actually thrown up a lot of questions going forward into the race. So, I mean, props for flipping the script, I'll give you that. But, of course, I'm really sorry that your race ended like that. We would have loved to have seen you go the full distance. And, of course, it looked like you were on for that win tonight.
Yeah, like I said, I felt good, and off the start, I feel like I had a bit of pace. But I was a bit too close to chase going into that corner. And, yeah, it just didn't go to plan.
Ryan, thank you so much.
We live and learn. Cheers, Dave.
No problem at all. See you next week.
Cheers, buddy. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to Ryan as well for taking our questions this evening as well, after especially a very fast DNF. Ryan, of course, we hope to see him next week, but I think everyone will be hoping for a bit better than what happened tonight. But anyway, we now have a new chapter. A new page has been turned. Safety car will be ending at the end of this lap. Doesn't matter if Sergeant Devsey can catch up or not. We will go racing, whatever happens. And Sergeant Devsey was, of course, had to pit for one reason or another just during that safety car period. I think he's actually stopped twice. Let's just double check. Yeah, so a 2-stop already for the Ferrari driver. And it looks like he's just having a bit of trouble in these early stages of the race. But remember, these drivers don't often drive in the wet. So, despite them expecting it, it's not stopped the chaos from happening here in Australia. Safety car period coming to an end on lap 4. And safety car indeed gets called in, and so we will go and do our usual thing. It is on board with the Williams here. We will, of course, see how he treats the safety car race starts. And then we will be up to judging it. So, to the Williams engine, take it away. And Truckster doesn't wait very long at all through the final corner. You can see him struggling with traction there, and as does everybody else behind. And now, Truckster has a 7/10 gap over second place, but everybody else is now underway. Remember, Toby and Kvachka with 10-second penalties to serve, and there's a Ferrari trying to look around the outside of Herman here. The intermediates clearly struggling on this wet surface. There's been a Sauber off at turn 1 through the gravel. Goes Sir Ibo, and clearly struggling with his tyres, as well as Pleasant Stake and Kvachka go side by side through turn number 3. And what about turn 4? They are still side by side. No contact between the two somehow, but the Alpine, let's go. And look at that understeer in the wet. The Mercedes clearly struggling there, but mind you, was what caused Ryan Brooks's incident earlier on. How about this? A Haas round the outside, going through turn number 6. That's very rarely going to work, but look at that. That's constituted the Alpine into things. Yellow flag again. What has happened in the background? It looks like somebody's had a collision, and it is, I think that is the Williams Aquan there having an incident. But look at this, Quincy having a lightning start up 4 places, as fellow Son is also up into 3rd. Shark action happening up and down the field. And look at this, fellow Son and Herman still fighting, but Herman gives up the ghost and he allows the Ferrari through, but that Ferrari's struggling for traction. And it's looking like it's going to be a very difficult evening for the drivers ahead. This rain needs to let up sooner or later. Hello to Dutch in the chat as well. Hope you are having a very good Tuesday, and I hope this improves your evening. Skid Solo, after losing several positions, as it looks like Kwan is the one that is struggling. And look at that, Truckster away by 2 seconds to the McLaren of Race Chase. So all of a sudden, while the script was flipped, we might still have an exciting race on our hands, and maybe Quincy has the pace to come up through the field. Remember, he's fighting with Pleasant Stake for the championship right now, and they are even on points, with Quincy leading as of right now. So here we go, going into turn 3. Quincy can't quite close enough to have a go, but I want to keep an eye on this battle for what is 3rd place, and Race Chase still trying to hang on to the back of Truckster, but of course no DRS in these conditions, as it's considered unsafe, and these cars are not built for the wet. And look at this, there's a battle here. Oh my goodness me, and there's space given to Brand there. Slides onto the straight there. We're a bit far away for a Tokyo drift, but that is a Melbourne drift, and 3 wide down this straight. Are you serious right now? The drivers are playing life and death in the wet, and it is nothing but spectacular. And Energetic gets past his teammate and maybe cut a bit of the corner there for good measure. As now Quincy's, had another moment. He spun through turn number 12 there. I said 13. And his race has gone even worse, and all of a sudden it's all coming undone. The championship leader might be no more, and he's not even in the points right now. That is how bad things have gotten. He needs a second safety car to try and bring him back into the equation, let alone just into the race. My goodness me, Quincy is having one heck of an evening, and it's not the best kind. He's going to have to really fight this. But now we're on lap 7 out of 29, and fellow Son just seems to have it here when it rains. He is currently on to the back of the McLaren of Race Chase, and of course his teammate having very opposite fortunes this here in Melbourne. But fellow Son there not too affected by the dirty air, going through turn 5. Can he get close enough? Now remember, no DRS like I mentioned earlier in these wet conditions, so the obligatory tyre stop or at least the compound switch is, of course, removed. Look at that race chase, using all the track, kind of making sure Fallowson couldn't find a way through, but it is futile. He has found a way past the McLaren, and Fallowson gets second place, and he could be onto the back of the leader before you know it. The Ferrari on fire here in a land down under. And now Herman is going to have a go at the McLaren as well. Up into third place goes the Mercedes. And that nearly lost it through that sharp turn 13, but holds the position. And there was also another move in the background. As I think, yes, one of the drivers has gone and served their 10-second penalty. No, Sebo. As, oh my goodness me, the racing bulls there drifting through. What is turn 14 now into 15? And look at that backside of the car squiggly. In fact, that's not exclusive to the Racing Bulls at all. That was Kovachko in front. As now the intermediates seem to have come into life. Fastest lap of the race, a 1:34.5 from Herman the German. And look at these two. They are, look at Fellow and Herman. They are starting to close the gap to the leader. It was at 2 seconds on the previous lap, but now it is 1.5 seconds. And Truxton might be starting to feel the pressure, as now there's more battling happening at the back. And Quincy, well, he's back in familiar territory, but wouldn't want to be looking at the back of a Kick Sauber, I can tell you that for free. There's a Williams of Juan there off in the background on the grass, so a bit less pressure for Quincy as a brief yellow flag occurs. Oh, I thought that was an unsafe rejoin there, but luckily it all sorted itself out in time. And, well, Juan remains ahead of No Sebo for now. Quincy still at the back of this Sauber, unable to find a way through, but now I need to show you this battle for the lead, because Fallowson is closing, but Herman is closing even faster. He is right on the back of the Ferrari, and Herman will know not to battle the Ferrari too hard and maybe just save his tyres a little bit. The rain is beginning to let up on the track, and he will now be just thinking, well, maybe I could just save this. He needs to stop that weaving around, to just control his throttle. But again, in these conditions, that is easier said than done, just to try and save those grooves in the wet tires to make sure that he can still move the moisture. But now underneath the second, the top three are separated by just 1.6 seconds. And this could be one heck of an exciting race. And again, Herman into the 1:33. So the intermediates have now reached the point of being faster. Fallowson wide through turn number 1. And that will affect everything going through to turn number 2. He rejoins safely, but that has allowed Herman into second place. And now race chase might be brought into the equation, but he's also got pressure from the Mercedes behind of Pleasant Lake. So the two Mercedes are really taking advantage of this squabble that the championship leaders have found themselves in. And what's Quincy doing? He's on for a pit stop. Oh, his front wing has been damaged, and it goes from the worst to the worstest race it possibly can. I don't think you can get any more horrible than this. And he does now. He just needs a safety car just to bring him into a battle. He is all, well, it's nearly all on his own there. Depending on where he comes out, he's going to be behind Toby, as Quincy with a 10-second penalty for crossing the pit exit white line. Oh, my word. I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk, but his race feels like it's the one that's particularly come undone. Sergeant Dempsey, whoa, as we see an outside move into turn 11. What a move from Energetic, as now Pleasant Lake finds a way past race chase at the very same time. But Energetic, what a move that was in the wet. Brave as anything, and he gets the move done. The Alpine had nothing to show for it. He had no response to Energetic's move, and that is a Racing Bulls as now Truxter into the pit lane. Herman will now assume the lead of the Grand Prix, and look at that, Fallowson has actually caught right back up. He's not let Herman get away with absolutely anything, as Eugene now is the next driver with a 3-second penalty for track limit violations. But we need to see where Truxter comes out. What tyre has he got? Intermediate tyre. Smart choices. Oh my goodness me. A bit of lag there, so nothing to really write home about. Doesn't cross the pit lane exit white line, unlike Quincy, but Truxter is lagging like there's no tomorrow, just coming out the pits. So hopefully that all sorts itself out and he can continue racing. But as you can see here, I think Truxter has actually gone and done a smart thing here. He's seen Herman on the intermediates and will now try and undercut the Mercedes. So Herman all of a sudden looking like the Season 1 champion that he was many a time ago on F1 23. And maybe he can put on a little bit of a charge, because remember, his teammate is the only one to worry about, but imagine an inter-team battle between Mercedes again. That would certainly be exciting. And here we go. The two Alpines are about to fight down this straight. I don't think Kovac's going to fight that too hard. He does not. He allows his teammate through. And that is Tabran up into 6th. And remember, Kovacka with a 10-second penalty to serve in his next pit stops. So he will be held at his station for an extra bit of time just to clear off the penalty. And then as soon as Kovacka lets go through, oh, there's contact between the Haas and the Alpine. Luckily, no one is spun in the wrong direction. But now, the Haas going to be held up a little bit. And Quincy there, of course, is still down in 17th. And his race feels like the one that's come undone the most. He's going to be feeling rather hard done by the look he's had this evening. And 11 laps in, like I said, he needs a safety car to really brought back into this and then serve his 10-second penalty, which he got by crossing the white line at the pit exit. So he might have just approached the line to turn one a bit too early. And Kwan has also had another error. Of course, we saw him earlier going very wide into turn 1. Saw him on the gravel, but luckily was able to rejoin. And look at that understeer. He's suffering in these wet weather conditions. It's certainly not easy. Battles going on up and down the field, and we're trying our best to catch all of them. And let's see. So half a second between Truckster and Tarkangino. Of course, it's going to be very interesting how a fresh set of intermediates compares to old full wets, as Rowley now makes his move for 7th place. But we are about to see Truckster now make his move. And look at that, around the outside, down the straight. That is as easy as you like. That is Truckster up into 9th position. I promise you there was no mistake when I said that. But at the moment now, fellow Sun starting to get within that 1 second gap. And no Seba with a 3-second penalty. I think that's his second one. No, that's his first one. So sorry about that. I got mixed up with his teammate Bruiser there, who actually has a 10-second penalty to his name. But these two still going out, and they've just got to be wary that Truckster does have a fresh set of tyres on his car, and they will be undercut by him. They might just be waiting for a second safety car. That is certainly what I would do in this scenario, but of course, I would say that's a little unlikely. But then again, you just never know with these wet weather. You don't know who's going to be caught out, and we've seen, of course, our championship contenders fall foul. In fact, the entire top 3 were involved in a collision where Ryan Brooks DNF'd. Of course, he described just going straight on at this very turn we're at, as fellow Son there tries to show off to the broadcasting as Bruiser. We cut to the battle for 14th. Kwan being allowed through as Bruiser made a mistake coming out of turn 13 there. And there you go. You're just seeing how shallow of a line Bruiser takes. Is he coming into the pits? No, he is not. I thought he was there for a hot second, but no, he decided not to. And whoa! The Alpine there nearly causing an absolute traffic jam for the Williams, and kind of did. No damage visible on that front wing. But my word, that was awfully close to absolutely tear-shedding end for what has been an excellent race from the Williams so far, but that will not help his undercut strategy. He finds a way past down this long straight. I do believe they called this Lakeview Drive at one point in time. And that is Truxton now up into 8th. But remember, he is slicing his way through the field on those fresh intermediates. I'm surprised he hasn't set fastest lap. He won't set fastest lap on this occasion, I can tell you that, thanks to that little obstruction from Kovacka. But at least he is definitely showing that he's got the pace to be at the front as Herman sets another fastest lap there. That is a 1:33.1, and Pleasant Stake has been dropped by the top 2. And that might become 4th place before long. And Race Chase here. Well, Race Chase actually having a good day. He got pole position, but has now since lost it. Doesn't have the pace to keep up with the drivers in front on these wet tyres. But, you know, he's doing a very good job. While Quincy has suffered in the background, and speaking of Quincy's progress, he's now 1 second away from Suribo there. And Suribo actually having a mistake, and that's why the gap reduced so dramatically. He actually, Kix Alba making a mistake there, and he's actually going very wide through turn 13 there. Oh, nearly getting it into the barrier. And there's Devsy in the background, not having the best of days himself either. And, well, battles, like I said, are happening up and down the field, but you've got to admit there's some great recovery drives happening. And, you know, I wouldn't count either the McLaren out of this one just yet. But the racing has now kind of stagnated, although the closest battle is between Eugene and No Sebo, both sharing penalty totals, both with 3 seconds for track limit violations, and the Aston Martin trying to find a way or push the Red Bull into kind of hurry-up state. Not quite working out, though, and he has to remain behind for the time being. As there we go, we are seeing another battle develop in the background while we are watching this. But let's see what moves are made down here. Skid Solo, very much the cork in the bottle here. He's very much out of position as we approach the next few turns. This iconic S section, it remains as it was, as Pleasant Stake now into the pit lane. So he's going to undercut like everybody else. And this is where we need to keep an eye on Truckster. Does he come out behind or ahead of Stake? Oh, that is well ahead of the Mercedes driver, and Truckster might be your net lead of the race here. Of course, this is approximate calculation, so we will have to see the top 3 come in for a stop. Well, in fact, consider that the top 2, considering how far Race Chase is off these two. Nearly 12 seconds of a gap there to the guys in front. As now Quincy, as Bruiser has made yet another mistake. At the same point, we saw I think it was the kick Sauber of Skid Solo have an overtake there. As then the nose speaking of, oh no, Sebo very wide there through turn 1. That should allow Eugene through. It certainly does. And more mistakes coming in as Toby also making his way up to 16th. But it's just very hard to stay focused on one battle here. It is looking like it's been certainly a good race, as Bruiser, I think, is in the pit lane. He indeed is. That is going to be relegating him to 19th place for the time being. And can the Aston Martin find a way past the Kick Sauber, unlike the Red Bull, who tried to dive it into turn 1, but sadly couldn't make the corner exit stick. As now Pleasant Stake with a 3-second penalty. Fellow Son is next into the pits. Let's see what tyres he comes out on. And that will mean we cut our attention to Truckster for just a few seconds. And I think Fellow Son might just be okay, you know. I think he's ahead. I think he'll be just ahead once we reach pit exit. In fact, yes, he is. Oh, no, it's actually going to be much closer than that, because Fellow Son is just going to be ahead. Truckster with the fastest lap of the race, but is it enough? It might not be. Now Truckster and Fellow Son side by side, and Truckster gets it done. He had to, well, give us a little bit of a scare, but that means the undercut is surely effective, and Herman is going to be under some real pressure as caution in Sector 1 has occurred. I can't see for what reason. Oh, wait, there's a parked up Red Bull there. Is that for Bruiser? It is. Shouldn't bring out a safety car. He's just trying to let drivers through. That's certainly very generous of the Red Bull, but there we go. That's how we see. I think there was a front wing end plate there, just gone. I thought I saw one anyway, but that's rolling up into 3rd place there. Great overtake from him. But Fellow Son now having to sit behind the Williams, and we now know where he is in terms of pace. There's more battles happening in the background. My goodness me, Skid Solo overtaken by Eugene, and that should allow the Aston Martin to get away, but 21 seconds to the next car in front, which is Energetic. That's going to be a very difficult slope to climb now for the Aston Martin driver. Needs a safety car, as do a lot of other drivers. Quincy especially, you would think, has quad there. I thought I saw another mistake there, but it looks like it's all kind of worked itself out rather nicely. Caution in Sector 1 yet again, and this time for Sir Ibo, who's got in the gravel, as now Truckster and Fellow Son having a bit of argy-bargy there, and Fellow Son's tyres have probably come up to life as the two of them begin to have battles down the start-finish straight. We're on lap 16 out of 29, and this has been a rather entertaining spectacle in Division 2. It's been absolutely classic racing, but now Herman surely needs to find a way to come into the pits. He cannot hang on for a safety car, as to Brown is now the next driver to pit, but at the moment we're seeing the closest battle on track as of right now, although Skid Solo might count, but he still needs to make another pit stop. It's, again, more battles happening up and down, and we're trying to catch all the side-by-side action here in Division 2, and that is off the track from Tarkin Gino, so he will not be allowed to keep that position even if he made the overtake stick. That is Pleasant Stake back into 7th for now, but has a 3-second penalty to come his way post-race, and Kavachka still without his pit stop. Still needs to serve that time. Oh, Pleasant Stake there in the barrier. It looks like he's really struggling with traction here. And yeah, no, a lot of drivers having a case of the understeers it would seem. But of course, no surprise there considering the conditions. Pleasant's Sake now right onto the back of Kvachka. He can surely try and make a move work. Coming down into turn number 13. Does he go to the inside? No, not quite feeling brave enough to stick it there, but we'll have to consider the dirty air through the next couple of corners. Maybe he can try and set up a move into 15 if that's looking realistic. Takes a narrower line there, but that allows room, and the Alpine does not show any sympathy at all. Kvachka still racing, but he has to give it up as now he's into the pits, and Fellow Sun there with the fastest lap of the race as Kvachka and Tarkangino both into the pit lane there. So that is, I think that's their, no, that is a 2-stop for Tarkangino there. So he pitted earlier on lap 3, so that'll been under safety car conditions. Just to give you an idea, 3 drivers on 10-second penalties as Energetic gets his first, I believe, 3-second penalty. Yes, currently situated in 7th place, but 6 seconds to the car behind. If that stays as it is, that will not affect him at all. You are currently witnessing a battle between the intermediates and, well, a new set of intermediates and an old set of intermediates. Rolly on 16-lap intermediates. And is trying to fight off Fellow Sun, who, of course, pitted a couple of laps ago. We're still waiting for Herman to complete his stop if he even needs to. Maybe these intermediates could go to the end, considering they would have been very cool towards the beginning of the race while there was a lot of moisture out on track. As Fellow Sun there looked like he was gearing up for a move and looked like it could work. But Rolly had that all but covered off, and Rolly having a bit of an error on the exit, just a bit too much throttle as those tyres are starting to give us now. Truckster, thanks to the struggles of Rolly, is now starting to find that that Fellow Sun is getting chased yet again by Truckster. We are going to start, I think it's lap 18 out of 29, might be proven wrong in just a second. No, I am not. So 12 laps to go. And I do believe we still need to see a stop from Herman, but the Haas doing a very good job of keeping the German all but fair in this fight. Of course, the two are not teammates at all, but he's certainly acting like it, considering how much he's holding up Fellow Sun and Truckster, of course. At the moment now, it's still going to be behind. Can he try and line up and move into the next turn? It would be very unlikely to do so. And yeah, no, has to slot him behind for now, but needs to try and get a run through here. And it really, on those tyres, you'd expect him to have the best run out of the two, but just, it doesn't quite have the traction on the exit. Rolly's tyres still seem to be within their life and still seemingly giving him acceptable grip. And look at that, Fellow Sun all the way behind by 3/10 there. Won't be able to attempt to move into this turn. And there's the dirty air affecting the life, and the Fellow Sun trying to avoid any track limit violations. That might allow Truckster onto the back of the Ferrari. Can he make a move going into the next turn? No, has to slot him behind. Sensible stuff there from the Williams. And that is, and well, we all remain line of third. Caution in sector 1, and a lot of scares happening when this when that yellow flag is shown. Oh my goodness me, no Sebo very wide through there. And we have also got a caution in sector 2. Is that for Kvachka? It looks to be. He looks like he's had a mistake just going through what is turn 6 and 7. I remember very last race here, last podium. And welcome on in, Daryl. Hope you're having a good time. It's our Fellow Sun. And it's rolling side by side into turn 1. There's contact between two. The Haas is spun round. And I think the Ferrari actually said it was sweet, but the Haas has gone through. Oh, there's more contact. They are in the barrier. Oh no, Fellow Sun was on for a great result. And now Truckster steams on past. And what has been a dramatic evening is only getting written. It is drama. The top two involved in a collision. And now Pleasant Sake is looking at what could be a very recoverable result. It's just got past Fellow Sun. Does the Ferrari or the Haas have visible damage? No, but they might have floor damage. And it's getting a lot worse now for Fellow Sun, who was looking like he was on for a good result here. Fellow Sun in the barrier. I think he's just losing composure in the cockpit there. And now, side by side with the Haas and the Mercedes, Can the move be done? No, not close enough here. There's a blue flag here for a kick Sauber. They do not ghost the cars in this league, so they've got to be careful. We've got a 3-car battle for third place. The kick Sauber really generously gets out the way. And now to the from the inside to the outside. There's Fellow Son making a move. There's contact between the two. There's the hats going wide. There's Fellow Son trying to get on the throttle. Oh, they're going wide. Oh, my goodness me. Oh, my goodness me. That is contact. They somehow still point in the right direction, but that is very tense stuff. There's more contact between the two. They are touching wheels. This is intense stuff, considering the league we're in. My word. My word. What is going on here in Australia? I'm not complaining with 10 laps to go. How much more of this have we got? Norlo Son there was giving it everything he possibly could, but now it is a 30-second deficit to the Mercedes and an 8-second deficit to second in front. And you've got to say, well, we've not talked about Herman all that much. He's having an absolutely stellar drive. Started in third place after a great qualifying. He's really on the up and up this evening, and everything else around him has just worked out. He's not seen any of the drama. I bet he can't wait to watch this back and see how very little he's featured. But I don't think he'll complain at the same time. My goodness me, I just ran out of words when they went 3 wide into that turn 14. That is insane stuff. But it is exciting all the same, and it's lucky they were all pointing the right way after all of that, as it's Quincy in for his next stop. Oh, another front wing end plate has gone, and it might be no points here for the McLaren. Has to, of course, serve a 10-second penalty for crossing the white line after on the exit of his previous stop, and has had to come to a complete halt there, and Kwan might be getting ready to make his move, and no, Sebo, I don't know about that gap being caught. There's another caution. For whatever reason, oh, well, that was just a slow-moving kick Sauber there, but lots of scares happening. Oh, my goodness me. More contact there as the skid seller and no Sebo. Clearly no love lost. And he's done it again. Quincy's done it again. He's done the same thing he did last time. And it's got a 10-second penalty to serve. What will be post-race now? And Quincy is being lapped in the battle he expected to be in. He slows right down. And that is 25 seconds to the points. Your championship leader is now gonna not score any points at all and could lose positions to Kwan as well, who is just approaching, and Quincy having to take avoiding action. Well. Quincy, what a miserable evening from the McLaren. Of course, constructor leaders as well going into this, and that is also going to evaporate. So Race Chase really needs to dig deep in these final 9 laps, because the Mercedes are scoring high tonight, that's for sure. And here we go again. Pleasant Sake and Fellow Son are also made contact with 3 wide with Rolly earlier on. What is going to happen here? This battle for the final podium spot. Well, don't forget, Pleasant Sake needs to somehow find 3 seconds once he gets past, but there's been... Oh, no, Quincy. I thought I had made more contact with somebody, but no, and there we go. He loses 17th. And Quad goes right past. And Quincy now has to really find a way to dig deep and finish this race, because he is over 50 seconds to the points. And I think Quincy's now going to try and make some sort of move on the Williams here. Of course, I'll try my best to not cut away. As now, look at this. We are going to see a battle for third place yet again. But remember, Pleasant Sake with 3 seconds to serve post-race, so needs to get this move. As Quincy has retired in the pit lane. So there you go. Can't really blame him for that. Championship leader going into this will no longer be the championship leader. And of course, there was Ryan Brooks as well. And just since that collision with Ryan Brooks, as Fellow Son there having a bit of a moment on the exit. And I think I don't want to really try and grab a DNF pro interview with Quincy, because the action on track has been so chaotic. I don't know if he can make his way into the pit box. I'll just double check I'm unmuted here. I am indeed not. And in fact, Quincy has come to join us. Quincy, that was not a good evening at all. 2 10-second penalties for crossing the right lines. And then, of course, lap 1, turn 5 collision with Ryan Brooks' accident there. As Fellow Son there gets a 3-second penalty. So we've got action also happening for third. But Quincy, quickly take us through that race. That was pretty awful for you.
Yeah, Dave, short and sweet. I got rear wing damage, orange rear wing damage from the incident with Ryan. So I've been struggling to keep the car on track, and the oversteer that happens from time to time out of nowhere because of the rear wing's broken, it just kind of takes you into the wall. Hence the sort of constantly pitting for new wings. And the pit exit, I'm just not sure what the hell's going on. I'll have to double check my replays, but I'm sure that I did not go over the limits, but hey ho.
All right then, things are just cooking up for third place, but I just have one last question for you, as we've seen now Pleasant Snake do a mistake, so that's 2 seconds between the two of them. What, I mean, you were leading the championship tonight, that's going to surely evaporate now, thanks to Pleasant Snake's result here. What are your thoughts going forward as we move on to Jeddah next week?
I'm just gonna race for fun this season. I'm happy that I got a win finally. I think that's my highlight. Going forward, I'm just gonna race for fun. I'm missing 2 races as well later on in the season due to holidays and whatnot. So I'm just gonna see how it goes, race, see if I can get some fun out of it, and just have a good time, really.
Thank you very much, Quincy, and try to enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm sorry to see your race end like that.
See you next week, mate. Cheers, bye.
See you next week. And that was Quincy there, very kindly taking an interview as we were looking at the third place battle, which is now separated by over 3 seconds, thanks to Pleasant Snake making a mistake. So I do think he's just going to try and hold on to 4th now, and it looks like Fellow Sun has that third place all under control. But guess who hasn't pitted? Herman the German has not pitted at all. We have a caution in Sector 3, and I think Herman must be having a heart attack every time that little yellow flag comes up, because he could lose that 20-second lead he's built up at any moment, and until he gets on to lap 27 out of 29, it is not gonna be safe. So just a couple of more laps he needs to hang on, and then maybe, just maybe, he could try and hang on to that lead, but it's not going to be easy. He's really left it a challenge for himself on a no-stop strategy. Is Herman. I can't believe what I am seeing here tonight. All sorts of craziness is popping off. And now we might have a fight for third as well between 2 drivers which made contact earlier on. A 3-wide with Rowley, which luckily ended up with everybody pointing in the right direction. And now Energetic, well, if these 2 start fighting, he could be right in there. What a great recovery from him. He's got a 3-second penalty to boot for track limit violations. But now he's going to try and make the move on the Haas. He'll need to find 3 seconds once he gets past. Needs that to be sooner rather than later. Can't find it down the start-finish straight as of right now. He doesn't have to pit, as we don't have the mandatory 2-stop rule anymore, and also it's wet weather conditions, so the mandatory compound switch has been completely removed. So no pit required from the Mercedes, as we have a caution in Sector 3 for a slow-moving vehicle, lap traffic, so no worries for the leader there. But of course, this will be a big one going into the final few laps. 5 laps to go. He will be hoping for no safety cars at all, and if there is, well, he'll be hoping to be at the right place at the right time. Fellow Sun with the fastest lap there. Pleasant Snake responds in kind. A 1:31.2 from both of them, as Fellow Sun gets an additional 3-second penalty for track limit violations, pushing very hard there. That will certainly be one, whichever of these 2 finish on the podium, that will certainly be one to talk about, as now we'll watch Energetic try and find a way past the Haas in front. So now, well, Pleasant Snake will want this done on track. That much I can tell you for free, so I don't think he's going to let that go so easily, and he'll remember what happened. And, well, Fellow Sun still going to hang on to 4th, as Rolly is dropping back by now 8 seconds to the cars in front. But then, if Energetic finds a way past, which he needs to, as we said, sooner rather than later, preferably this lap, so then he can have at least 4 laps to go on the attack, but messes up the exit due to that dirty air. This could be tricky. It says the Racing Bulls of Toby without his front left end plate. So could this cause trouble for the Haas driver? Of course, the Racing Bulls will be forced out the way due to blue flag rules. But it has remained very wet here in the Melbourne track. And now here we go. Surely that Racing Bulls has a good run. He's going to try and find the outside going into turn 13. Here we go. Who has got the edge in the brakes? It looks to be the Haas for now. But Rowley has gone very wide into the gravel even. And that is Energetic through. And, well, I was just going to try and make a comment on the battle for third, but Pleasant Snake has decided to let that drift away and is going to try and remain within that 3-second bubble as Toby now into the pits, and he will make a final front wing repair and go out for the final few laps. As now Race Chase has caught up to Rowley. We begin lap 26 out of 29, so if a safety car was to happen, Herman should now be safe. So I think that is his race to lose. And it would be an epic no-stop strategy here from the Mercedes driver. So let's see how these final 4 laps go. But we have got battles happening up and down the field. And it looks like Race Chase is also starting to buffer out to Rowley. But then again, let's see how this lap goes. Rowley with at least 3 tenths there throughout this first sector. Doesn't seem to be much of a difference between the full wets and the well, sorry, these are... Well, why is Race Chase not catching as much? 18 laps difference between the two of them, with Race Chase being on the fresher compounds. Doesn't quite seem to be happening for the McLaren driver. And we'll soon see how that all goes out. But anyway, down the start-finish straight goes Race Chase. In the slipstream, down towards turn 13. Can't quite get the move done, even having a bit of a slide at the rear end there. But I think he actually did that on purpose to get the car turned in. Didn't quite get the run there on the Haas driver, though. So he'll continue on. But now, look at this. Pleasant Snake is beginning to lose that 3-second gap to Fellow Sun in front as well. And that's the battle for third. So will we see Fellow Sun on the podium? I don't know which way that's going to go, because I remember it was Fellow Sun to the inside, and nobody really gave the room there. So that's going to be an interesting one to go to the stewards. It'll certainly be one to ask about, but here we go. The closest battle on track as of right now. Chuckster, by the way, got 2 seconds on Herman there, but I don't think it's going to matter, considering Chuckster will need to find something of... he'll need to find some pace to try and find 6 seconds in these final 4 laps. It's... oh, goodness me. I don't really see a way that works out for... the Williams driver, unless if Herman gets a 3-second penalty. But it looks like Herman has found his Season 1 composure and is just letting everybody know, I'm in this. Don't count me out. He came into this race 11th in the standings, and, well, will be much higher than that as soon as the race concludes. Just to give you an idea of who has fastest lap, and we still do give fastest lap of points. That goes to Pleasant Snake, who's currently in 4th. And that is certainly where he will be. He'll be very annoyed that he couldn't quite keep it within that 3-second window as Race Chase there cuts the corner rather aggressively there to try and get a run on the Haas driver here into turn 13, but doesn't quite work out. And you know what? In all of this, Fellow Sun is also catching up to the back of Trugster here, but of course that's going to matter very little due to the fact that there's a Kick Sauber there. I think that's Sir Ibo. In fact, is that Sir Ibo? I don't... yeah, no, it's not. That was Skid Solo there, who is actually in the points, believe it or not. So another couple of points going the Kick Sauber's way. Of course, they are currently at the bottom of the standings, which just shows you the divide between drivers has actually been really nicely done. But the Kick Saubers definitely are feeling the pain of this year's rules. As we now on lap 28 out of 29. Will this battle for 6th change in the next couple of laps? They are close enough to Energetic to benefit from his penalty, but no more, but no further than that. Kvachka has served his 10 seconds in his pit stop, but isn't quite close enough to benefit from a 3-second penalty from Eugene, so he wouldn't quite finish in 10th there, but won't also lose out to anybody else around him. And here we go. I think the McLaren gets a good run out of there onto what was called Lakeview Drive. Going on board with Race Chase here. Is he close enough to have a go? Pleasant Snake with another 3-second penalty. That means Fellow Sun has all but secured 3rd place for the time being. Of course, I think that will be heavily investigated after the race. Caution in Sector 1, by the way, for a slow-moving Quan, I believe that is. So that matters very little, but no intervention required from race control. By the way, Herman has started the final lap, but we are certainly focused on this one. But we will, of course, cut to Herman in just a few moments, who is on the final lap now. He has had an absolutely fantastic race as now. Well, look at this. Fellow Sun has caught up to the back of Trugster. How on earth has he found this pace towards the end of the Grand Prix? I don't have a clue. As there is a blue flag here. As now, oh, Race Chase has made his way past Rowley after the Haas made a mistake. So that is 6th place for the McLaren driver, Sergeant Dempsey, gets a 3-second penalty, but now fellow Sun and Truckster are right up against each other. And, well, unless if fellow Sun can find 6 seconds on the final lap, I don't really see this going any other way. Truckster does not need to fight this too hard. He's got no track limit penalties coming his way. Caution in Sector 1 for a slow-moving sailboat of either Skid Solo or Sir Ibo. But now, Herman is starting to approach the final complex of corners. Season 1 champion, and has been awfully close between Season 3 and 4, but he never quite found his stride. It has been a long time coming for a victory from the German driver. He shared the commentary box last season, but finally, after 3 races in Season 6, he finds himself back at number 1. He did it here in the land down under. Herman the German wins the Australian Grand Prix. It doesn't matter if fellow Sun can find a way through. He will have us. Oh, Truckster there with a mistake. Oh no, don't make a mistake there. Don't have your 6 seconds go to waste there. That's been a good race from Truckster. A bit of a mistake at the end. It won't matter though. He will still have 2nd place, and it will be fellow Sun relegated to 3rd, but Pleasant Stake will remain in 4th place. But Race Chase has an excellent recovery despite losing pole position. He will finish in 5th. Might be disappointed with that, but of course, once Energetics penalty is served, and then Rolly comes home in 7th, he should be able to keep that no problem at all. As Tabran comes home 8th, 9th will be Targangino. And then we'll just have to wait for his teammate in the other Aston Martin, who I think is actually being obstructed by the lap traffic here. Oh, he was. Anyway, oh, Eugene there with an epic drift. And that is the Racing Bulls of Toby there. And in fact, actually, Eugene just giving us having a bit of fun with the car there as he comes towards the start-finish line. He will hold on to 10th. Kovachka couldn't quite do enough to bring the gap down to under 3 seconds. And there we go. Nice one from Eugene there. Into the barrier he goes. And that will probably be a stricken Aston Martin there at the line. And there you go. Apart from Kwan, all drivers have made it to the end of the race, apart from Quincy and Ryan Brooks. Of course, Ryan Brooks crashing at turn 5 on lap 1. And Quincy, the championship leader, DNFing in the pits due to rear wing damage, which caused random shots of oversteer. What drama in Australia. That was something special. You had the procession of Qatar last night, but now you have the ups and downs of Australia tonight. And what a race that was. What a race. I show understanding by the whole length. Mega drive by Herman. Absolutely no pit stops from Herman the German. A 0 stop strategy gives the Mercedes driver the win. And what is driver of the day stuff. I don't care who you are. I do not care how many places you made up. You have got to give credit to Herman. That was an excellent drive from the Mercedes. I don't know why they're giving it to Rolly. Herman all the way. Cleanest driver is Kovachka, so he will officially get driver of the day in SSRL, because now a driver of the day is given to the cleanest driver. Your top 3 is Herman the German, Truckster, and Fellow Sun. Fellow Sun relegated to 3rd after a 6-second penalty. Might be more, depending on how the stewards feel. Then it's Pleasant Stake in 4th, Race Chase in 5th. Then from 6th to 10th is Energetic, Rolly, Tabran, Tarkangino, and Eugene. Then from 11th to 15th is Kovachka, No Sebo, Devsy, Skid Solo, and Toby. Then from 16th to 20th is Kwan, Ibo, Bruiser, and your non-finishers, Quincy and Ryan Brooks. What an evening that was, and I cannot stress that enough. And we do have our entire top 3 ready to take some questions. We will, of course, start with our winner. It's been a long time coming, Herman, but from the commentary box last season, you had to wait 3, well, technically 4 races to be on the top step. That must feel ever so sweet. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. Enjoyed that one. Thanks to Fabius for this brilliant strategy call. I have to say the safety car wasn't really helping with the front tire warm-up, but yeah, after I could groove in, people were getting past at the front, the 2 guys, and then when I realized, okay, halfway point, let's stick it out, don't pit, the others are stuck in traffic, I learned about a crash, and yeah, then I just kept going. Last couple of laps a bit more easier because rears were a bit too warm. I miscalculated how much you need to adjust rear tire pressures, and after that, it wasn't too bad. And I'm still quite surprised that low wing was working so good in the rain. So yeah, honestly, a bit of a surprise. I had a bit of practice before, and dry didn't feel as bad as the previous two races. So I was more looking forward to a dry race. But yeah, I'm glad this was my quote unquote comeback race here.
Absolutely. I just knew from your qualifying pace there was something special in there. What was your feeling like coming out of qualifying? You had third place there, and then all of a sudden it really just kind of came together. Of course, there was a massive crash, lap 1, turn 5. Of course, as you said, you struggled under the safety cars with front heat. But then there was all sorts of other contact just behind you, and you were just nowhere to be seen for the entire race. And that no-stop strategy worked in your favor. Was there any point at all? I know you said that that was what you were sticking to after the halfway point, but was there any doubt at all that it wasn't going to work?
Yeah, the starting phase was quite tricky. I didn't have any rain running before, so you always need to adjust a bit of differential brake bias. For the quali, I ran basically what is usually around what I prefer for the dry. So yeah, I would change a couple of things if I see like a prediction of rain like this for the next race again, where like every cloud on the grid was full wet rain prediction. So yeah, a couple of adjustments I would have made, but other than that, I think the overall idea, like the last game was as well, with Inter's running quite well in full wet conditions, was you clear the line, and everyone who has the better, quote unquote, better tire on is going to clear out that line. And I was just trying to see how much rear wear there was, especially with these kind of slow corners after the more speedy section in sector 1 as well. So yeah, after they pitted behind me and opted also for the Inters, and I was like, if the gap isn't decreasing as significantly as it should, maybe on first sight, then I should respond to that. But like couple of laps later, I was already committing to just staying out and having that sort of idea that I only want to stop again for safety car. And coming into quali, I was also looking at pole position there. I had like 3/10 maybe on my final attempt, and then spun it in lap 12 on the inside curb. And yeah, that was a bit frustrating, but yeah, nonetheless, you had to find a compromise for extremely different conditions. So I was quite happy that somewhat worked, and obviously straights are even more dominant now on this track after a couple of years ago where they changed the track. So yeah, found the sweet spot today, and also for the driving, it felt really nice. So yeah, enjoyed that one a lot more than the previous two combined.
And I'm just going to take a quick book out of your interview questions from last night. You, of course, alluded to it earlier on about a low downforce setup. So could you give us a bit of insight into what went into that low downforce setup and what the reasoning was?
Yeah, for now, it seems like that the overall performance on the rear for these cars is very good. So you can run especially high wing gaps, and there isn't to my liking as of right now. So I made adjustments according to that, and I didn't want to feel left out on the straight, obviously, because this is where you do the passing, even though you obviously sacrifice again, especially in sector 1, to make sure that you stay close enough to people behind. I didn't plan to be leading race for most of the race, so that obviously helps with having the freshest air you can possibly have. And when talking to the other guys in the voice, they had at least 10 clicks more of wing, and yeah, that was basically the compromise I made from the dry setup, which was balanced more and had smaller wing gaps per se. So I always try to mix that and have a bit of a compromise to have the most comfortable feeling. And I just converted what is currently the best strategy for having a dry setup to a wet race, and especially in between sessions, where there wasn't any change inside of the race, but from quality to race. So that was very low. I think I can't see many probably running this when they saw the rain. So I'm hoping that this kind of idea is going to stick with me for most of the races, because compared to Andy, for example, I prefer having the wings on the lower end more. I think I enjoy that more, and my driving is generally better there. So high downforce tracks are not to my liking, but yeah, I haven't raced any of them in 50% races so far as well on this year's game. So let's see if there's an improvement maybe for that. But we have
Okay.
to wait and see.
Absolutely. Herman, thank you so much for taking my questions, and congratulations again on the win. But we have to sadly move on. I would love to hear you ramble all day, but we've got to move on. Unfortunately, we are a bit on the clock. Unfortunately, we have lost fellow son, so we will move on to our second place driver, Trugster. Congratulations, second place, another podium in season 6. Second place was all you could fight for, but honestly, I bet you expected Herman to have another pit stop.
I certainly did, yes. But again, no penalties, Dave. Here we
Exactly.
go.
Well done. Proud of
Yeah.
you. Second race on the
Yeah,
road.
thank
Keep this up.
Yeah. Yeah. I shouldn't have pitted, really, should I? I thought the track was drying out a bit, but later on I discovered they were just puddles, really. Shining, reflecting. So I could have stayed on the wet. I'd have been just as quick. I lost. Once I realised that Herman wasn't going to pit, I just thought, bring it home. It's second. Don't get any penalties. Can't catch him. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a lesson in concentration, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and of course, how did the wet weather affect you? Because I imagine most of the drivers here usually prep for the best conditions, dries, and then all of a sudden you go into the feature race and you find out, oh goodness me, it's wet. What does that actually do to you? How did that affect you?
It stops you blinking for 50 minutes. Basically, yeah. Just extreme focus, isn't it? Yeah. Just got to concentrate very hard. Feel them tiny little movements in the car. The last lap, I didn't realise it was the last lap, and coming around the corner, we got the victory. Yay, or whatever, and it made me jump and it's fun. But other than that, I drove quite a good race. I was quite happy with myself.
And just kind of a last touch on the strategy, of course, barring Herman's no-stop strategy, was it always going to be a one-stop for you, or were you thinking about two-stop at any point in the race, or was that going to be...
To be honest, I was thinking about going all the way on the wets, and then I seen that Herman was gaining a bit of time on the inters. I saw the track looked to be drying up in certain areas. I just thought, jump onto the inters. When everyone else stops, you'll catch them back up. But obviously Herman didn't stop again, so congrats to him on he's done me on strategy, ain't he?
And just one final question before we end off tonight. We have, of course, a very thrilling chapter in the championship. Of course, Quincy had to suffer, so that means Pleasant Snake will take the lead. And of course, with Herman winning, we've got all sorts of scripts lining up now. So how are you feeling going forward? Is there a tiny bit of championship hope, or are you just having fun week by week?
Well, I'm having fun week by week, but I feel like I'm driving well, so I don't see why we can't keep pushing and see what comes of it. Fingers crossed, you never know. But yeah, mainly to have fun and enjoy myself.
Drugster, thank you so much for taking my questions this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And we'll obviously hopefully see you next week. And keep up this no penalty streak you're on, and we're really enjoying it.
Yeah, thank you. And keep up your good work too, sir.
I most certainly will. Thank you all again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and that it will do. Unfortunately, we lost fellow son there. I think he just had to go to bed sooner rather than later. It looked like it had been a very frustrating race for him. So we don't know if that third place will be upheld. That is certainly going to be something we find out next week. But otherwise, let's go through your calendar yet again. Of course, I will make sure we can compare and make sure that the Division 1 calendar stays the same as the Division 2 calendar from here on out. I think this is the only discrepancy, but of course I will make sure of that in just a few moments. But otherwise, it's off to Saudi Arabia next week, followed by a 100% reverse grid 100% race in Belgium. I cannot wait for that. That is going to be one heck of an exciting race. Then it's Hungary, followed by Spain, along with a mystery Grand Prix on August 26th. And then to round out the season, in this 10 race season, beg your pardon, it will be Zandvoort, followed by Monza. And then, of course, you can catch us, of course, for Division 1 next week on Monday, of course. That will be 8 p.m. No, sorry, that'll be 7:30 p.m. BST. I'll just make sure to double check the calendar like I said I would, and that will indeed be in Saudi Arabia as well. And yes, no, the only discrepancy was round 3 tonight, and all the rest of the races will take place in their relevant locations. But of course, Division 1 being on the Monday, Division 2 being on the Tuesday. But apart from that, that is all from myself. So all I have to say is from everybody here at SSRL, including the drivers, the admins, the stewards, and of course the owner, Quincy himself, we all wish you a very good evening. And from all of us, as always, we wish you a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. See you next week for either Division 1 or Division 2. But I think there's a lot of exciting stories to be unfolded throughout the season. Of course, Herman will be with me on Monday, and it'll be me, myself, and I on Tuesday. Can Herman get another win and maybe bring himself into some championship hope? He needs an epic string of results, and maybe needing to win all 3 races the next 2 races that come up in Saudi and Belgium. You're just going to have to stick around, find out what happens. Don't forget to hit the follow, but if you are watching the race on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe and hit that bell notification. Races are usually uploaded a few hours after this live stream, but until whenever I see you next, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.